The Stratco Outback is a complete portfolio of products that are tailored to your individual needs. Whether for entertaining, an area for children to play, or all year-round weather protection, a Stratco Outback will improve your lifestyle and the value of your home. This DVD provides assistance to help you install your Stratco Outback Clearspan gable with the fundamental information and some handy hints to help you along the way. Before you start, it's important to check with your local government authority prior to the installation of your Stratco Outback. It is the builder's responsibility to ensure any structure to which the Outback is being attached to is capable of withstanding the additional loads and, if necessary, is adequately reinforced. This includes existing concrete to which the Outback is being attached to. Watch this DVD and read the installation guide in their entirety before starting your project, and refer to them constantly during construction. Lay out the components in order of assembly on the ground and check them against the delivery note to ensure you're familiar with them and ensure you have all the necessary tools. Refer to your drawing of the Outback and house showing all measurements. Mark out the overall area of the Outback and ensure it's free from obstructions. Beam-to-wall connections can cause difficulty if they coincide with window or door openings, so try to avoid these in your design. Ensure there is reasonable access for materials and working space, and consider the disposal of runoff water. Check post and beam positions on the ground and check for square by measuring diagonals. If attaching to a corner of a house, also check the existing structure for square. Box gutter installation. Remove the existing house gutter where the box gutter will be installed. Consider how and where the box gutter will join to your existing house gutter and downpipe. Cut the box gutter and join to existing house gutter. Fix in place above your rafter strengthening brackets, joining it to existing house gutter and fascia. Measure the remaining length for the box gutter and cut. Seal all joins and rivets with silicone. Rafter strengthening brackets. Rafter strengthening brackets need to be installed at maximum 1200 mm spacing. Prior to ordering the material, you should lift your existing house roof and locate your house rafters. Whilst there are several options for strengthening rafters, the recommended method is Stratco's adjustable rafter strengthening bracket. The adjustable rafter strengthening bracket allows a greater distance between the house fascia and the Outback attachment beam to facilitate the installation of a box gutter. It consists of two pieces, the long arm and the T-piece. Cut a hole in the house fascia to allow the long arm of the bracket to protrude through. Slide the bracket through the fascia and position alongside the house rafters. To provide additional strength, a reinforcing channel may also be required on the opposite side of the rafter or on both sides. The reinforcing channel should extend to at least 1800 mm beyond the bird's mouth of the rafter and or 300 mm past the web overhang of your house rafter. Bolt the long arm of the bracket to your house rafter using a minimum of 6 M12 bolts. These are not included in the standard Stratco Outback kit. Fit the bracket as close to the bottom of your house gutter or box gutter as possible. Ensure the bolts go through the bracket, rafter and reinforcing channel if required. Contact Stratco for more information on steel framing reinforcement and attachment methods. Bolt the T-piece of the bracket to the long arm at the desired location. Ensure the front face of the bracket is vertical and is at the desired distance from the house fascia. As it is critical all brackets are even, run a string line to align the brackets. In the case of a corner attached unit, if the house is not square, this can be corrected by adjusting the brackets accordingly. Once rafter strengthening brackets are fixed, the Outback attachment beam can be prepared and then bolted in place. Attachment beam preparation. Mark the desired hole locations. Drill a pilot hole and then a 10 mm hole right through the Outback beam in the same location. Then drill a 13 mm hole right through the Outback beam in the same location. Gradually widening the hole will ensure they will stay even either side. Turn the beam over and drill a 17 mm hole on the inside face to allow for the insertion of the spacer. The spacer minimises any potential crushing of the beam when bolts are tightened. Remove any swarf. Attach the Clearspan beam capping to all side attachment beams before bolting it in place. End attachment beams do not require the beam capping. Ensure the double thickness is at the top and the seam faces the house and the roof sheets will clear either the existing house gutter or box gutter. If a cover flashing is being installed to conceal the rafter strengthening brackets, it's preferable to line the bottom of the attachment beam up with the bottom of the house fascia, provided this allows water runoff into the house gutter or box gutter. Clearspan beam capping. Side beams or valley beams of Clearspan gables have a capping attached to them to provide additional strength and height. Measure the inside section and cut to length if required. Ensure that the two sides of the inside section remain flush with the faces of the beam. Screw the inside section to the top of the beam with 12 by 20 self-drilling screws every 500 mm and no further than 100 mm from the end. Multiple lengths, if required, are butt joined. Remove any swarf. Measure the outside section and cut to length if required. Clip the outside section over the inside section at one end, ensuring the return fold sits inside the top flute of the beam, and fix with one self-drilling screw. Work along the length of the beam capping, gradually clipping the outside section over the inside section. The return folds on the bottom of the outside section nestle into the top flute of the Outback beam. Fix the outside section to the inside section using 3 mm rivets or 12 by 20 self-drilling screws every 500 mm. It will be necessary to notch the beam capping where other beams are connecting. Attachment beam installation. Lift the beam into place and insert spacer and bolt into attachment beam. And connect to rafter strengthening brackets, ensuring the bolt head and spring washer is on the inside face of the attachment beam. Hand tighten all bolts. Then, once all are in place, tighten but do not over-tighten bolts to avoid crushing the beam. Where attachment beams are being joined to other perimeter beams, install a beam-to-beam bracket, and where posts are positioned, install a post-to-beam bracket. Perimeter framework. Refer to the drawing to determine the orientation in which beams are being attached to each other and column location. Ensure the double thickness of the beams is to the top. Locate the beam-to-beam bracket on the inside face of the receiving beam where the beams will meet. Align the top of the bracket inside the top flute of the beam. Place a beam filler in the recess of the bracket and fix in place with two 10x16 self-drilling screws. If a column is to be connected below a beam-to-beam connection, use a notched beam filler and post-to-beam bracket. Slide the joining beam over the bracket and fix in place with two 10x16 self-drilling screws either side. A post-to-beam bracket simply clips into place. Fix post-to-beam bracket with two 10x25 countersunk self-drilling screws each side. Where posts are located at a beam-to-beam junction, install both beam-to-beam and post-to-beam bracket with a notched beam filler. Repeat this process for all attachment beam, valley beam junctions and column locations until perimeter framework is completed. A beam end cap is simply pushed into place to conceal the exposed ends of the beams. Be sure to use construction props during the framework installation to hold the framework in place and ensure they have a stable footing. Once all framework is installed, check for square by checking the diagonal measurements. Gable rafter installation. Gable rafters are supplied pre-cut to the required pitch and length. Identify the correct rafters using the cut detail at the base of the rafter. Intermediate rafters and rafters placed at the end of the structure with no header beam have a plumb cut, and rafters placed onto a header beam have a corner cut. Ensure the double thickness of the rafter is to the top and the seams are to the same side for both rafters. Slide the ridge knuckle into the top end of the rafters and check the overall width against your installed framework. Then fasten the rafters using two 12x20 self-drilling screws either side of the rafter. Rafters where no header beam exists. Identify the location of internal rafters from your drawing. Measure along valley beams and mark desired location. Fix rafter to valley bracket using 6 12x20 self-drilling screws to the Clearspan beam capping. Ensure the bottom of the rafter to valley bracket is in line with the bottom edge of the top groove of the Outback beam and remove any swarf. Insert the assembled rafters to the inside of the bracket and fix with two 12x20 self-drilling screws either side. Check the rafters are vertical. Rafters attaching to a header beam. Fix gable beam bracket to the top of the header beam and side of the beam capping with a minimum of 4 10x16 self-drilling screws. Insert rafter into the bracket and fix with a minimum of 3 10x16 self-drilling screws. It may not be possible to gain a fixing on both sides of the rafter due to obstructions. Check the rafters are vertical. Ridge beam assembly and installation. Before attaching the ridge beam to the rafters, fix angled back channel to either side of the ridge beam, using 10x16 self-drilling screws every 500 mm, ensuring that the top of the back channel is in line with the bottom of the top chamfer of the ridge beam. The back channel needs to run to the outside of the gable rafters. If internal rafters exist, the angled back channel will need to be joined over these. If this is the case, run the angled back channel 34 mm past the end of either ridge beam at the internal rafter junction and butt join over the centre of the rafter. If only end rafters exist, run the angled back channel 68 mm past the end of the ridge beam both ends. Fasten along the top of the ridge beam with 12x20 self-drilling screws at 500 mm centres. Fix the ridge rafter bracket to the inside face of the rafters with 6 12x20 self-drilling screws. Position the bracket so the angled back channel will rest on the gable frame, which for a 22-degree pitch unit is 32 mm from the bottom of the rafter and 42 mm for a 30-degree pitch unit. Position the ridge beam inside the brackets and fix the ridge beam in place with 2 12x20 self-drilling screws either side into the ridge rafter bracket. The top screw may need to be fixed through the angled back channel. Roll the foam into the angled back channel and cut to length. Gutter installation. The first step of gutter installation should be completed before roof sheets are installed. If the gutter requires a mitre to be fixed to it, cut the gutter and fix the mitre in position with 4 rivets. Determine your downpipe location and cut a hole in the base of the gutter. Insert the downpipe outlet into the gutter. Rivet and seal with silicone. If the gutter requires a stop end to be fitted to it, fit the stop end with 4 rivets and seal with silicone. Cut the supplied 30 mm wide flat strip to 60 mm long and rivet to the back lip of the Outback gutter. Lift the gutter into position and rivet the tabs to the Clearspan beam capping. Universal deck straps will hold the front of the gutter. Install these after the roof sheets are laid by pushing the strap into the gutter's front lip and fix to the ribs of the roof sheets with rivets. Column assembly. Into concrete. Once framework is assembled and checked for square and the correct fall for gutter, which is 1 in 500, determine column locations. If the column is going into concrete, dig the hole to the required specifications and place a half brick in the bottom of the hole for stability. Measure from the underside of the Outback beam to the top of the brick and cut the column to length. Insert the cut end of the post into the footing with a bolt or self-drilling screw through the bottom of the post to provide an anchor to the concrete. Slide the Outback column onto the post to beam bracket and fix with 2 12x20 self-drilling screws either side. It may be necessary to lift the framework slightly to do this. Check the post for plumb and square. Pour around 200 mm of concrete into the footing and agitate the concrete to remove any air pockets. Repeat this process until the footing is full. Continually check the post for plumb and square. Be sure to form the concrete so that it is slightly raised towards the column to ensure runoff away from the post. Once concrete is set, remove any bracing. On to concrete. If the post is going onto an existing concrete slab, determine column location and masonry anchor location. Measure from the underside of the beam to the concrete and cut to length. If using bolted footing assemblies, deduct 20 mm for the plate. The hole location into the slab will depend on whether you are using the bolted footing assembly or the internal footing upstand. Mark the hole locations on the slab and drill the required hole size and depth. Bolt the internal upstand to the slab with an M12 masonry anchor after inserting the 5 mm washer plate. Bolt the column to the upstand with an M12 bolt. When putting the bolted footing assembly together, be sure to put the bracing inside the upstand to provide rigidity. Mark the hole locations, drill the required diameter and depth, bolt into place with M12 masonry anchors, slide the Outback column over the upstand, bolt in place and screw the post with two 12x20 self-drilling screws either side onto the upstand. It may be necessary to lift the framework to be able to do this. Fit the post caps with silicone. Roof sheet installation. Determine which direction the roof sheets are to be laid and roof light location. Before installing the roof sheets, ensure you turn the roof sheet pan up into the angled back channel for weathering. Push the first sheet into the back channel at the top of the gable. Ensure it engages the foam. Check for square and drill through the back channel and roof sheet from the underneath with a drill bit and rivet the sheets in place. There should be 2 rivets per pan per sheet. Fix the roof sheet to the beam capping with 4 12x20 self-drilling screws with neo washer in the same fixing pattern as the rivets. Clip the next sheet over the rib of the first sheet by pressing firmly on the second sheet until it engages the underlap of the first sheet. It may be necessary to support the join from the underside, especially for longer length sheets. It is recommended to clamp the roof sheets from the top to minimise any gaps created on the underside where the sheets join. Push into the back channel and fasten as previously described. After installing every second sheet, check for square by measuring the distance covered or distance remaining at the top and bottom of the gable section. Continue this process until all sheets are laid. Be mindful where any roof lights are going to be installed. Leave a 250 mm gap if roof lights can be slid into place. Depending on the length of the unit, the last roof sheet may need to be cut to suit your project. Install universal gutter straps to the ribs of the roof sheets no further than 1000 mm apart. Roof light installation. Roof lights are supplied in stock lengths and as such need to be cut to the required length. Check the total quantity and length of roof lights against the stock lengths supplied to ensure the correct lengths are used. Cut the roof light to the required length. Roof lights can be slid into place. Where this is not possible due to the house attachment, slide the roof light to the overlap of the roof sheet and lift both sheets into position and clip the roof light onto the already installed steel roof sheet. If the roof lights can be slid into place, install the steel roof sheets and leave a 250 mm gap for the roof light and slide into position. Ensure the roof light pushes into the foam in the back channel. 9 mm holes must be pre-drilled and then Fix to the steel sheets using 12 by 20 self-drilling screws with dome washers every 2000 mil. Push the foam insert into the back channel at the apex of the structure and fit the steel stop end into the bottom of the sheet with rivets. Seal rivets with silicone. It may be necessary to slightly trim the overlap of the steel sheet to enable the roof light to slide easily onto the steel sheet. Downpipe installation. Measure the required length of downpipe and cut the second section to length. Install the first length by sliding the downpipe over the outlet and riveting in place. Slide the small end of one downpipe into the big end of the other and rivet in place. Attach the downpipe to the column with the downpipe strap. Header beam flashing. Measure and cut the header flashing and fix in place. Leave a gap between the header flashing and header beam to allow the infill panel to be slid into the flashing. Cut the header flashing around any obstructions, such as columns. Gable infill installation. Determine the orientation of the infill panels, horizontal, vertical, or a combination of both. Consider the use of offcuts on both gable ends. Cut the material to the required angle and size. If using painted fibre cement sheet, it may be necessary to use a utility knife to reduce the width to allow the panel to sit inside the H mould joiner. Lift the first infill panel into place, check for square, and fix to the gable rafters. Slide the next infill panel onto the first using the joiners supplied. Fix the second infill to the gable rafters. Barge cap. Measure and cut the barge caps to the required length. Overlap the barges at the apex and fix in position to the rafters, angled back channel and roof sheets. Cut the Z flashing to the required length, slide under the barge cap and seal with silicone. Ridge cap. Measure and cut the ridge cap to length. Fix to the angled back channel and barge caps every 500 mil. Helpful hints. During installation, leave as much plastic coating on the product as possible to minimise the potential for damage or scratches. Always double check all dimensions and bracket locations against the plan. Refer to all supplementary information available, such as written installation guides, displays and other installation DVDs to assist in the installation. Always use a set square to mark required cuts. Always seal any exposed rivets with silicone. Sweep the roof and clean the gutters at the completion of the project to remove all swarf, as this can cause unsightly rust stains. Regularly check framework and roof sheets for square. Leave all construction props in place until concrete has set or posts are fixed to the slab. Always keep personal safety as a top priority during the installation of a Stratco Outback. If at any time you require assistance or clarification during the installation of your Stratco Outback, please do not hesitate to contact your local Stratco office. Maintenance. Congratulations on the completion of your new Stratco Outback Clearspan gable. Your sense of pride and achievement is well deserved. Your Stratco Outback will give you and your family many years of enjoyment by simply following the important recommendations as laid out in the Stratco Selection, Use and Maintenance brochure. We recommend you wash and wipe down your Stratco Outback with a soft broom, mop or sponge as often as you would wash your car to maintain its deco. More frequent rinsing and cleaning may be required in more severe environments.